we saved the best for last. Let's finish this off, shall we? After burning everything to the ground and starting over, I was finally ready to review Work at a Pizza Place, which had changed substantially since my last attempt to review it. Better equipped for the task at hand, I went into the game to record footage. Actually, I went in twice because I realized I needed to get another take without the game's integrated background music. Recorded the footage, recorded the lines, and hit a dead end at editing because by the time I got that far, I had swapped to a beefy new computer. My editing software wouldn't carry over, try as I might. I've since resolved that when Vegas Pro 16 popped up in a Humble bundle for a really good price, and $30 for a software bundle was much more reasonable to me than the asking price of $400 for a permanent license. I don't condone piracy, but I don't condone exorbitant price tags either. At that point, you're just asking for people to pirate your stuff. I can think of a lot better things to spend that kind of money on. But this was a long way off, and I don't exactly have ESP or time travel capabilities, as much as I lament not having access to Ross Scott's time machine. The most viable alternative presented itself when Daffy Titanic offered to double as both new title card artist and guest editor. That's the story. I do still want to get the episode done. I still want to get it out there. I'll do that as soon as I can. And go figure, he was not about to let me live down what I said in the April Fool's video. I deserve that. I was taking a bit of a gamble on Daffy because I hadn't seen him in action yet. He mostly acted on his own as an editor, only consulting me every now and again when he needed specific input on something or another, like what a particular voice line was supposed to be for, or what I was talking about at any given point. I did my best to accommodate him myself by writing notes with timestamps pointing to notable events, but I didn't make his life easy with the confusing default Shadowplay file names. Still, he did a great job editing, hitting just about every beat I would have hit. He even one-upped me on flame.png, even if the subtitles needed proofreading for the odd spelling or grammatical oopsie, like inspired from instead of inspired by. I still love the title card, though. It features a couple Easter eggs like my snake wreaking havoc outside. Have I mentioned Daffy hates snakes? And a missing person poster for Predatory, last seen at the Dry Bones arcade. I'm pretty sure Predatory was still around, but I lost contact with him years ago, and I had my doubts he would have taken kindly to me popping out of the blue just to ask him to do more title cards for free. I'm super grateful Daffy was willing to step up to the plate as a volunteer. Work at a Pizza Place by Dude One. Let's zoom in on Dude One's name as I intentionally butcher its pronunciation was just perfection. Exactly what I was gonna do. Reactions to the skits he added were a little mixed, but I was happy to let him experiment and was happy with how it turned out. He may have been guest editor, but I had final say in whether it was worth uploading. He'd set a deadline for himself, hoping to finish before the end of the year, and he just about pulled it off. Unfortunately, that didn't give us time for a whole lot of revision, but I'm still happy with how it turned out. Also, if you hear any little clicks during the narration, especially between sentences, that's the sound of my mouse clicking as I start and stop recording lines in Audacity. I didn't edit them out, and Daffy didn't notice them. That one's on me. But he did catch a flub in the lines I sent him and trimmed it out. He brought his A game for this project, both in terms of editing and custom skits that I never would have thought to add, like an intermission gag as I flip my shit over to the mere inclusion of badges. Lines like that are never not fun to record. Speaking of, I actually recorded most if not all of my lines in a Discord call for people to listen in on. I recorded the lines on December 18th and December 21st, 2020, while members listened in, chatting it up, and shitposting about shipping me with Foxy and whatnot. Only donors had the privilege of hearing the verdict, though. And none of us were expecting Daffy to have Activision Blizzard CEO Bobby Kotick or the EA logo rear their ugly heads while I was complaining about the game's monetization, but I can't say it's not fitting. So when you hop into the place you're greeted with the play button, I don't understand. What? I already hit the play button on the Roblox website. Clearly I have the intention of playing the game. The return of the redundant play button. I didn't actually throw that much of a hissy fit when I first saw it, but I certainly made a mental note of it for the review. I also had to pause to see the freeze frame bonus Daffy added after raging about having to pick gender, and, well, he's not wrong. I don't care about your politics on gender. Whatever you identify as, I'll take your word for it. That is what Everybody Wins looks like. The reviewer's just impatient and wants to get to the game without faffing around with mundane details. This non-existent slight is quickly forgotten when he sees the neat camera work. As we do the job rundown, we have Squidward, job everyone wants. Punching pizzas, Ding Dong Ditcher. Job nobody wants. Job everyone makes a mad dash to become, only to find some fucknugget has been camping there the whole time, so you have to wait your turn and rinse and repeat. And Slacker. First of all, that line took so many tries to get right, especially since part of it involved me going full-on zero punctuation, all in one take. What are the jobs, you might ask? Well, let's do the rundown. We have Squidward, job everyone wants. Punching pizzas, Ding Dong Ditcher, job nobody wants. Job everyone makes... What jobs are there? Let's do the rundown. We have Squidward, job everyone wants. Punching pizzas, Ding Dong Ditcher, job nobody wants. Job everyone makes a mad dash to become only... What are the jobs, you might ask? Well, let's do the rundown. We have Squidward, job everyone wants. Punching pizzas, Ding Dong Ditcher, job nobody wants. Job everyone makes a mad dash to become only... God damn it. I even had the idea to make a zero punctuation-esque animation out of it, but that wasn't in Daffy's notes, so he took the easy way out on that bit. Can't say that I blame him. He was spot on with everything else, though. As I spawn in, you actually get your answer for when I actually recorded footage. November 6, 2019. That's actually a few months before I got the new computer set up, and 6 weeks before I even knew I was getting into the first place, so losing my editing software came at just the wrong time. Around that time, I was trying to wrap up work on my thesis, so that took priority. Time spent working on the review was cutting into time I should have been writing my thesis and working through all the bureaucracy to get it submitted before the semester ended. I was also well into my job at Amazon by this point, so hitting too close to home was not just a bit. If you've ever considered working in an Amazon warehouse, don't work in an Amazon warehouse. Ever. And best I can tell, player points are about as worthwhile as e-swag at Amazon. Yes, that's actually what it's called. Worthless Disney bucks that you can only use to purchase company-branded apparel and shit like that. Gee, I'm so grateful they gave us e-swag for all our hard work instead of a pay raise. Hell, maybe player points are more valuable for all I know. Now that I think about it, it's misleading to imply my coworkers actually work hard. Not all of them do. The fuck it approach I demonstrated is unfortunately more true to life than it should be in my line of work. As patronizing as the tutorials are, they actually do a pretty good job of showing everyone how to do each task. Hell, I remember when the tutorials were just image slideshows. Standards have really gone up since those days. Now if you could include a tutorial on how to stop slacking around and actually play the game as intended, that'd bring the game into kicks ass territory. Actually, it wouldn't. But it would still improve the experience for everyone. It wouldn't improve the truck's handling, though. Not that I should expect any better. They're slow and cumbersome, just like their real-life counterparts. I had editing plans that differed a tad bit from what Daffy did for trying to turn the truck, but he tried. My delivery of the line, "Turn you bitch," was a nod to GTA Online racer Brophy1322.
Turn you bitch!
Making it one of my more obscure shoutouts. Some of these gags are just for me. And you, if you got it. I do question why this tutorial brings you all the way back to the depot instead of letting you deliver the supplies, unless I was supposed to do that first, then end the tutorial. I don't know. But it made for a good punchline of getting cinematic back from whence I came, followed by all this shit being thrown at me at once, culminating in a mental breakdown. I'll say it again, I never get tired of that kind of voice acting. Lord knows where that other truck wound up, but boy, do those heads look familiar. The pacing on the becoming a manager bit got a little bit screwed up because I'm still saying gimme 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 even after I got the role, but it mostly worked out. And then it led to another gag I wasn't planning. I think Daffy's trying to tell us something about his opinion of my management skills. I don't remember where or how he got his hands on a copy of the Work at a Pizza Place, but he used it to good effect to stage some of these skits, even if the physics didn't always work the way he wanted. Hell, this is better than my plan. My original plan was to just sit there in silence for a moment after becoming the manager, then quickly getting bored and leave. Manager really is an overglorified role in this game, just like real life. The most mileage I ever got was grinding out money in a private server with my friend and Discord mod, RS115. We worked like a well-oiled machine, occasionally switching to manager to give each other raises. That explains why I have a big house and all that money, doesn't it? To this day, we occasionally reference the gag we came up with while on the grind, saying, "Mr. Manager, raise please!" There was going to be a bit where I would demonstrate how much more I could get done all by myself, or at least with a friend or two helping. Sadly, it never materialized because I forgot about it at time of recording and planning, and the private server hosted by a friend was long gone. Have a bonus. Share the wealth. Damn it, Daffy, I'm trying to stay off my political soapbox. Quit tempting me! Anyway, I got several comments telling me that the stupid response options for cashier are still there. You just have to step on the change mode button that you can easily spot in my footage. What can I say? I'm serious about protecting my title as world's most unobservant human being. I hope Daffy isn't trying to snatch the title from me, because he didn't notice it either. That's a missed opportunity for him to take the piss if I ever saw one. He has no reservations about doing that, as you've seen. Unfortunately, neither of us noticed until after the video was finished, so the only ones to jump at the opportunity here were the people in the comments section. Either way, it felt a little weird to go around the place amidst players of a different generation who had probably never heard of me before. I never was that big in my Roblox heyday, but I had my legacy. And that legacy did not include singing. I am really, really shy about singing. But I felt like the occasion was right, and I felt obligated to throw in a little something extra to make up for how long it took to finally make this video. Unfortunately, I didn't properly sync up my singing to any actual performance, so my parody of That's Amore doesn't line up with the music Daffy put in. I was also shy enough about the ordeal that I didn't want to do it more than once, and even waited until I was alone to even do it in the first place. Also, I half resent that editor's note about the forums being gone. The reviewer is toxic, certainly, but xenophobic? Then again, he never said that my reviewer persona was xenophobic, just that he wasn't much better than the Roblox forums. When you put it like that, I can't really argue. And boy did Daffy have a field day with any opportunity he could get to add a skit. Don't you love random shit popping up while you're trying to play the game? I thought sticky keys already established that nobody likes that. But hold that thought, because now it's double time. Alright, let's start taking some orders. Make up your fucking mind, it's double time! Cheese pizza, great, took you that long to figure that out. Fantastic editing, but the music was a little loud. Maybe that was intentional. He definitely complimented the frantic delivery of my lines. If he's anything like me when I'm editing something like this, he was probably full of giddy laughter as he put this together. He gave the moment the dignity it deserved. I respect that. Imagine what people in the Discord call were thinking as they heard me going through these lines out of context, sometimes multiple times to get them to sound right. I know the thick Italian accent and put it out took a few tries before I was happy with it. I also know that never once in my life have I ever applauded the pizza delivery guy when he delivered my order. The most I've ever done was tell him to keep the change. There was one time where the guy didn't have enough bills to give back for the change I wanted, so I just let it stand as an extra tip for him. When he was gone and I realized how foggy it was out there that day, I felt really bad about sending him out in such terrible conditions, yet vindicated for the slightly larger tip. Given the opportunity to do it over, I would have told him that I'd be fine with getting less change back on the grounds that he drove safely. So, other than the occasional outburst in this video, you'll notice I'm actually pretty chill most of the time. That's what happens when the reviewer finally gets to review a game worth a damn that's pretty well put together. Good production value, kinda monotonous gameplay. And this was among the best games Roblox had to offer. What does that tell you? I'd ask the other players, but they're all on break. Believe me, that was a problem with the game all the way back when pizzas were delivered on horseback. I wish Amazon was as lenient with its break policy as this game tends to be. At Amazon, you're always 1 minute of time off task or TOT away from losing your job. That's sad when an imaginary game feels more rewarding than a real job. At least real jobs help you pay the bills, but at what cost? The NPCs in the game are all taken from players in the server, so it's only a matter of time before you see an NPC of you. I made a gag out of meeting myself because I really am that boring about pizza. No pepperoni, no bacon, just cheese. I can't say I would cry and leave the restaurant if you gave me the wrong order, but I wouldn't be happy about it. Back in the day, my parents and I had choice words with McDonald's staff whenever they put cheese on my burgers when we said ketchup only. And don't get me started on the time this one clerk just gave us a burger that was just 2 buns and ketchup because she misinterpreted our request of a burger with nothing on it but ketchup. I'm surprised they didn't just send us some foil covered in ketchup. Either way, rest in peace, Xiao. He did not do best. And yes, I realize the NPC did not say, "You do best." He said, "You da best." But I misread it, and it's too good of an in-joke for us to let go. It still sprouts up every now and then. In the interest of being thorough, I made sure to cover every role in the game, including on break. Again, my house isn't empty just for the bit. Funny as it turned out to be. I just never bothered with home furnishing because I was more interested in playing the game. If you're that interested in furnishing a house to your liking, that's what The Sims and Tower Unite are for. I didn't actually have enough money to buy much of anything, so I just had to wing it with what little I could buy. Still, it was funny in its own right, going from a completely unfurnished home to a barely furnished home. No kitchen, no TV for the den, no bathroom. Just a single chair, a stereo, and a bed. There was actually supposed to be a little skit with a stereo where I replaced the god-awful selection of music with my own picks, but Daffy was running out of time and trying to finish the video. He regrets how clunky his attempt turned out to be, and he was befuddled when he realized how much voiceover he accidentally glossed over in the process. I actually made a deleted scene video showing how the skit was supposed to play out, and had contemplated a re-release including said scene, but I didn't want to piss off my subscribers with a near duplicate upload. I don't really have much to add to my closing thoughts portion of the video. It speaks for itself. The only other thing worth mentioning is that my parody of Conte Partiro by Andrea Bocelli got cut short for a gag, and that someone photodocked an image of me in the manager's chair to instead show me in the boss's office in the Stanley Parable, but I can't find the image. All things considered, I'm happy with how this review turned out, despite the hiccups. Daffy went above and beyond in the editing department and made the video a tough act to follow. But I think we all know what happened next. But before we get into that, it's worth quickly going over what didn't make it into the show. I already talked about Run, but there were a couple other things that I never did. One idea I once had but never got around to was an April Fool's episode where I reviewed my own place, the Dry Bones Arcade. The plan was to take the piss out of my own place to drive the point home that I don't play favorites on this show. I also contemplated giving it a glowing review so that blatant conflict of interest and nepotism would be the source of comedy, but either way, that idea never actually panned out. I had also once inquired my fanbase about whether it would be worthwhile to do a mini-review compilation, quickly reviewing a bunch of different places in one video. That would have been reserved for places like Arsenal that are competently made, but hard to really comment on, and as such, didn't warrant their own standalone video. Maybe I would have gotten around to it, but my account got deleted before I could act on it, so that never happened either. Instead, I got to work on the grand finale. I really did not want to review this game. But after making a deal with the fandom to review it if I hit a total of $500 in lifetime donations, I was obligated. If I put another 0 on the end of that goal, I wouldn't even have been halfway there at time of writing. I was reluctant to do it and kept putting it off, but even as I was dragging my feet on the matter, I was still brainstorming. Some of those ideas made it into the final product, some were scrapped or forgotten. I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for omitting one bit of comedy gold I wanted to have in the intro, or at least somewhere in the review. That line being, "I'm just saying, missed opportunity to call it R2-D2. I know, review ruined forever, I'm sorry." When my account got arbitrarily terminated, a fact that seems to have flown under the radar of a lot of my fans despite my Roblox isn't worth it video, that put me in a bind. I couldn't review the place without my signature getup. I mean, I could, I had alt accounts, but it wouldn't feel the same. I needed a body double. The pressure was on to finish the review because the game was going to disappear, and I needed to figure out the best tune to fiddle while it burned. The gears started turning, and the end result was my biggest project to date. The most obvious and most important stage of the process was gathering gameplay footage. The idea to possess another player was among the earliest and most fitting, so I rounded up a few friends and fans in the Discord server to hop in-game and record footage. Luckily, Ingetin had already invested more time than he'd like to admit into the game, so he was the most familiar with the gameplay and best equipped to show off the stuff you'd otherwise have to spend hours upon hours grinding for. It made for an excellent source of contrast for what exactly you're missing out on in the early game. That wound up being extremely helpful because reviewing the game with only early game experience would have made for a very short, very uneventful review. Not exactly suitable for a grand finale. His footage did the heavy lifting, while Doppio and Zhao Kid Zero got some early game footage to show what a newcomer's experience is destined to be like. They did their best to match my getup, though neither was perfect. That's the price of possession. I'm lucky Zhao Kid Zero was able to get footage of the tutorial. What little he could, since it's broken. That's something you only ever got one chance to see. I asked them to take notes with timestamps for me to reference throughout the review, which proved especially helpful because watching someone else play the game isn't the same as playing and experiencing it yourself. That made this video harder to write for than usual. The notes from my crew really came in clutch, even though I only used a fraction of a few hours worth of footage. Zhao Kid Zero's footage barely got any use beyond B-roll. I still feel bad about that. Still, the review wouldn't have been possible without these three, so hats off to them. Another thing I quickly decided on was the music. I was dead set on making this an Avenged Sevenfold rock opera. That decision was made before they got into the NFT business, so they're another contender for the debate of, can you separate art from artist? But that's for another video by someone else. I didn't know how people would react to replacing Beast and the Harlot with Afterlife for this particular video, but I think I justified the occasion. Each song was hand-picked to fit the vibe and the moment. I couldn't get every song I wanted into the video because I really wanted to squeeze Strength of the World and Brompton Cocktail in there somewhere, but I couldn't find a good place for either song. Brompton Cocktail made its way into the No Rest for the Wicked teaser, though. Being thoroughly familiar with their discography from City of Evil to The Stage, I had a damn good idea of what song I wanted for each moment. What better music than the intro of Afterlife to let you know you're in for something special? And this was special. Slend handled all the in-game animation and did a great job. With my account banned, I'm portrayed as a restless spirit with unfinished business. Not unlike the actual predicament I found myself in. The song being called Afterlife and being about a man desperate to return to the land of the living so he can make amends proved doubly fitting for the opening. Not that I had any intent on returning to Roblox, but I did have one last thing I needed to take care of. A little bit of method acting for the prologue. The sound of despair and forlorn hope in my voice is real. I just wanted to be done with it. I was in a bad way when I recorded those lines, so seeing an opportunity, I fired up Audacity and did them in one take. And then I left to calm myself down. There's also another bit of incidental brilliance in the intro sequence. When Daffy was drawing the title card for the video, I took one look at the posture he put me in and realized, holy shit, this is just like the cover art for God of War 2. It was so unintentionally brilliant that I asked him to add my Blades of Chaos. It's still my favorite title card. If this doesn't scream, the end begins, I don't know what does. Otherwise, this intro played out almost exactly as I envisioned in my head. I love it. In the next bit after the intro sequence, reminiscing about the original reason to die, I had to redub a couple bits because I originally said 11.5 years ago. The video was supposed to be released in time for Christmas 2021. That wasn't nearly enough time for Slend, so I settled on another deadline, March 12th, 2022, the 12-year anniversary of the original review. Still, he needed a little more time, so I released a short teaser on the day the video was supposed to come out, and just tried to get the video ready as soon as we could. The wait for these animations was worth it. They helped the review come to life and personify the character in ways never seen before in the series. It helped make up for my on-screen absence in-game. His animation, coupled with my editing and After Effects, gave these moments a nice ethereal feel, even though there are a fair few moments where he passed the buck over to me, like when it shows the monitor. In truth, I did encourage him to do that so that he wouldn't have to animate as much. I think both of us were hoping to minimize our workload as much as was fair and feasible, so when he cut back to the monitor, I was left thinking, well shit, what do I do with this? I at least cut him some slack by covering a good chunk of the early section where I talk about the old reason to die, which you witness through a literal nostalgia filter. Yet you can see the tint filter gradually changing and the sound of nightmare slowly starting to creep in. Also, fuck tracking shots. Those are so annoying to edit. Any slight inconsistency in the keyframing, and it becomes painfully obvious. About as obvious as my disdain for Bobby Kotick, Yves Guillemot, and Tim Sweeney. I don't care if I'm mispronouncing Yves' surname, he doesn't deserve the respect. You can feel the utter contempt and disdain I have for this game, and the fact that I have to review it. You'd think I was taking it personally. I always play up my anger for the camera on this show, but now more than ever, I was blurring the line between staged anger and real anger. Although I'd still probably say I wasn't mad so much as I was disappointed, especially when I learned about PR's shady history. But again, that's for some other video by some other person. As anger gives way to resignation, so does the music, transitioning to Buried Alive. Slen's animation and my editing play off each other to make the scene more dynamic than it would otherwise be, complete with a grave I quickly put together in Paint.net. I sent Slen a file of the music and voiceover, and he animated over it, which is how everything got to be so neatly synced up. As best as we could do, anyway. I think there's a little bit of desync, but not enough to make a fuss over. I'm sure he had a hard enough time thinking up and animating these sequences as it was. We brainstormed together, but the most I did was offer suggestions here and there to improve or enhance things. Some of those things he bounced back over to me to handle in post, and we just kept bouncing things back and forth between ourselves until it was ready. This isn't how I initially envisioned the possession, so the improvisation on his part was really well done, all things considered. Simulation felt like a good transition, not to mention thematically fitting. Alright. The original implication was meant to be that the possession process was a painful one for the host, but Injatin wanted to leave the voice acting to me. The bluish tint of the initial animated sequence and the transition from possession to gameplay shows how far I've come as a video editor since starting this series. The intro where I rag on the intro logo is just another example of a creator inextricably linking themselves to the place itself, thus opening themselves up for critique from the reviewer. Ye play with fire and sometimes ye get burned. Especially when you have the shitting nerve to have a microtransaction store. There is no better transition song for this than Scream. For the uninitiated, I did not edit in that woman's scream. That's literally how the song starts. The specific contents of the shop are not as important as the fact that a shop even exists in the first place, so there was no need to go over it in depth. You can already imply what kind of items will be in it anyway. I feel like it's a rule of thumb that if your game has weapon skins, there will be at least one Asimov skin, especially if it's a CSGO weapon. I don't quite get the appeal of making your gun look like a Nerf blaster, but apparently I'm in the minority since that's a high-value skin. I love the accidental timing of this bit. Well, waste not, want not, right? That wasn't even on purpose, that was just an opportunity for a subtle editing gag that I was not about to pass up. As was the green jump scare. Now you're green and on fire became another occasional in-joke in the community. With the intro happening so fast, it only felt fitting to make the narration and editing about as frantic and spastic. Lord knows there were plenty of opportunities for the reviewer to flip his shit in this review. I spent the review flip-flopping between the usual brand of disdain of the character and the occasional outburst. It's no fun if I spend the whole review shouting or cussing. The character's angry, obviously, but he's gotta have a baseline to jump from when those outbursts do happen. Otherwise, they just become status quo and the whole review becomes unpleasant to listen to. Even AVGN didn't spend entire reviews shouting at the top of his lungs. I already blurted angrily about PR plastering his face on the intro screen, so running across the same thing on the truck is just what the character would expect at this point. To be fair, a guy named Greedster actually said he built the truck, and the livery was just a placeholder that never got changed. He had a lot of insight to offer, and I pinned his comment in the original video if you want to read more of it. He almost plays devil's advocate and was actually pretty chill about the whole thing. When I reviewed the original Reason to Die, I came at it with a limited understanding of Left 4 Dead. Now that I played it extensively, comparisons between the two were inevitable this time around. Using mods, I was able to stage a few scenarios in Left 4 Dead 2, like the grenade launcher. If you're familiar enough with the game, you'd know it was staged, because the grenade launcher never spawns in the passing. Valve added the grenade launcher purely out of a desire to see more explosions and more zombies killed by explosions. That's straight from the developer commentary. But they still wanted it to be a somewhat rare pleasure, not a substitute for Full Metal Jacket and buckshot. You get a lot of grenades, but you can never replenish its ammo. Again, being uncommon is what makes it special. On that front, I don't think PR or his team understood the importance of moderation when making Reason to Die Awakening. Unless it was their intention to turn Left 4 Dead into a Michael Bay movie that nickel and dimes the shit out of you. Then again, I also wasn't expecting to have an opportunity to unironically invoke Not the Bees in 2022. We live in strange times. I always find it amusing when games try to emulate the recoil system in games like CSGO or Rainbow Six Siege without understanding the fundamentals of why it exists in the first place. Or in this case, implementing it so poorly that there's literally no incentive to ever aim down sights. You don't get this kind of insight into the game without someone who seems to know it like the back of their hand. I would never have guessed that you get a massive health boost if you wait until the last possible second to turn into a zombie after you die. Ingeton made mention of it in the notes, but I couldn't find a way to fully incorporate that bit of trivia into the script without screwing up the flow. I just hand wave it and move on. With all the chaos of what I was witnessing, and seeing an opportunity for a transition, I decided to swap perspectives for a little change of pace, so we could get a look at the early game hell just about everyone who's played this game has experienced. This is more of how things would have felt if I was playing myself. Doppio's footage was not off to a good start when the facade of polish dropped, thanks to the victory screen bugging out. You know, this game gave me a little perspective into one of the possible reasons Valve decided not to let humans play as the common infected. I'm reminded of something Crocodile once wrote. Spawn camping is lame. Don't do it. I don't care what Shibby2142 told you. Stop being scared of competition and let people actually play the game. I agree. It's one of the reasons I stopped playing Team Fortress 2 and fell out of favor with PvP in general. Rainbow Six Siege was a neat enough concept for me to start warming up to PvP for a few years, but by the time Operation High Caliber shipped, I had cooled right the fuck back down again. I seldom play multiplayer anymore, and when I do, it's usually Left 4 Dead 2. Penny Arcade's greater internet fuckwad theory tells us that ordinary person plus audience plus anonymity equals fuckwad. And that's on full display in multiplayer games more often than I'd prefer. At least I can't say this game wasn't stupid enough. If anything, it seemed to revel in its stupidity, taking the absurdity it had and running with it. In that regard, it carried on the spirit of Left 4 Dead 2 modding. But at least when you're modding Left 4 Dead 2, you can indulge in stupidity on your own terms. R2-D2 went full on Fortnite, for better or worse. You need to suspend the ever-loving shit out of your disbelief to go along with this. But then again, knowing the most likely target demographic is kids, I think PR knew what he was doing with all this. Like I said, it knew it was nonsensical, and it indulged in every moment of it, down to the totally non-threatening growls of the Hunter knockoff. Doesn't matter if the art design had all the consistency of a Wish.com bargain bin, or Team Fortress 2 in 2023, that's the whole appeal. I won't pretend I don't indulge in that kind of absurdity myself, given the obvious influence of some of these gags. This is more just, I got a bone to pick with you. I think we need to move on. To think, it all started with AVGN. In this review, you can tell that JonTron, Cat Icarus, Yahtzee, and Ross Scott have rubbed off on me. I don't even watch AVGN anymore. After the Mega Man review, when he partnered with Screenwave, the show started to lose its appeal. Still, I respect his legacy for what it was, and I don't envy him for being stuck with AVGN. I wonder what it would be like in a parallel universe where James Rolfe hit it big as a film director instead of being brought back down to earth by the failure of the AVGN movie. Well, at least my show ended off on a strong note, right? Back to the review. The early game hell is strong in this game. Barely any ammo, no obvious way to replenish it, you don't even get resupplied when you respawn, and instead of scavenging for gear, you're expected to buy it. There wouldn't be an item shop if he didn't want you to do that. Truly, it feels like Back 4 Blood and R2-D2 took a page out of the same book. Neither game did too well for themselves in the end either. Coincidence? about as much as a coincidence as all the zombies spawning in the same exact spot, facilitating spawn camping. This is why it's important to have multiple spawn points instead of bottlenecking everyone to a single spot. Let the zombies spawn in secluded spots, out of sight of the survivors, give them the tag and power by default instead of hiding it behind the GUI, and you're already on your way to having a more enjoyable and less obtuse experience. I'd say improve the visceral nature to help raise the stakes and intensity, but I know why he didn't do that. You have to water things down so as to not scare the kids stealing their parents' credit cards to buy gear in your game. Remember when we weren't afraid to scare kids, or let them feel negative emotions to prepare them for the real world? Or, treat them as intelligent human beings? We need more Wilbert Audreys, Beatrix Potters, and Don Bluths in the world. Back to Thomas, the Season 5 episode Duncan Gets Spooked still gives me the willies, especially with its less than reassuring ending. In all fairness, I'm pretty sure making everything rated PG at worst is mostly a Roblox thing. It encourages creators to appeal to younger audiences and to keep a squeaky clean image, because that works so well for YouTube and Forza Horizon, right? Realistically, I can't blame the bad hit registration on PR either. File that one squarely under just Roblox things. He can fix the gameplay, but he can't fix server latency. As for the water, since I'm trying to be more constructive and dropping the raging facade here, I'll play devil's advocate for this one. The water kills you in that one map, most likely because that particular area is out of bounds. There doesn't seem to be any way to get back up from down there, so rather than leaving you stuck, you just respawn. That's speaking from the perspective of if I were designing it anyway. It's not the best look to have inconsistent rules regarding water, or anything for that matter, but at least there's plausible deniability here. The broken tutorial, however, you'd think at least someone would tell him it's broken, but then again, you only ever get one chance to see it, which really narrows the number of people who'd be able to see it and report it. Besides, there isn't much incentive to replay it if you already know the basics. Still, that's a pretty damn important thing to leave broken. Again, speaking as someone with years of experience making games on Roblox, I'm pretty sure a Roblox update broke it, and he didn't know or care enough to devote time and resources to fix it. I was actually going to say a little something in the segment where I show the microtransaction store one more time, but I decided it'd be more effective to let the clips do the talking. Nerdcubed, James Stephanie Sterling, 3 Clicks Phillip, Bikini Bodhi, and Ross Scott already had stinging critiques of the downright predatory monetization model being employed, so I yielded the floor to them. Nerdcubed wasted £240 on pixelated nothingness that will cease to exist when, not if, the servers shut down. James Stephanie Sterling reminds us that microtransactions are textbook invent a problem, sell the solution in terms of slow, grindy gameplay. Bikini Bodhi shows us that the house always wins, even with earnable currency, because buy more boosters! 3 Clicks Phillip's Case Unboxing Millionaire is a demonstration of the futility of such an endeavor when, again, the odds are stacked against you to goad you into spending more money. Ross Scott spells out the broader implication of all these points. PR and many other Roblox creators, not to mention Roblox itself, are playing you for a fucking sucker. Don't be a fucking sucker. Right from the start of the video, I acknowledge that R2-D2 could be seen as a case study in a game that's a culmination of everything wrong with gaming these days, so it's no wonder I might have come off as more bitter than usual, even by raging Roblox reviewer standards. Then we cut to Slen's last cinematic, perfectly paced with the song Betrayed. I paced the music very intentionally so that I'd be going through the subdued part as I'm showing the clips, then the cinematic would start right as you hear, "How could you kill the man?" The Revenge of the Sith reference is something I had planned for years. There's a clip from a stream I did on Twitch from 5 years ago proving as much. As for the thing that I plan to do, I feel like there's no more suitable way to address the matter of Reason to Die Awakening than to go, "You were the chosen one! You were the one who were supposed to restore my faith in Roblox, not ruin it!" Actually, I think that was a pretty good tape. Maybe I should have been recording that. I'll do it again with Audacity at some point. Folks down below are probably like, what the fuck is he on about? I wouldn't even be able to show it if Lopus hadn't clipped it. Thanks, Lopus. I didn't want to cause a ruckus, so that was something I definitely had to wait until I was home alone to do. It's the loudest and hardest I've ever shouted for a video. That performance came from the heart. This was going to be the finale, so I had to make it count. I went all out on this crescendo. Not only do we have Slend and me bringing our A-games for animating, voice acting, and editing, but I even got custom modeled Blades of Chaos just for the occasion. Splattered made the blades in Blender, and given the low poly count limit he had to work around to make it compatible with Roblox, he did a phenomenal job. I wish I had these when I was still working on Roblox God of War. He regrets not making a custom texture for it, but it hardly matters since the image he used worked well enough. I don't think he gives himself enough credit for what he brought to the table. The Ascension sequence was another idea I had planned from the get-go. I had other, slightly more ambitious plans that would involve 2D animation, but that never materialized. I was also torn between a couple songs to use for this part. The other contenders were the final chorus of Afterlife, and the last third of Danger Line. I'm free. But when Higher got to the point of living rent-free in my head, and I realized what I could do with it, that sealed the deal. There was no better song I could use for this. I was hoping the Ascension itself could be faster and more energetic than Slend showed, but it was effective nonetheless, especially with the after effects I added in editing. That included my own adjustment to the lip sync to make my mouth bigger and wider for the second syllable of ascend, because Slend's wasn't right for the moment. I'm shouting the line, not mumbling it. About 30 seconds in Paint.net and a little keyframing magic later, I had it fixed. Then I picked up where he left off to finish the Ascension sequence the way I always envisioned it, transcending to a higher plane of existence. Whether you laugh or feel the feels through this section, either is an appropriate reaction. It's epic, bordering on overdramatic, and a good metaphor for my determination to put Roblox behind me once and for all. It took a few tries to get the first shot to look right to match the pacing and timing, but after a little trial and error, I finally got a good take. I love that splashing out of the water had the sound and feel of breaking the sound barrier. That wasn't the intention, but it was too good not to use. The crosshair was a little distracting and immersion breaking though, so I had to use a little editing magic to get rid of it. It's not a perfect solution, but good enough that most people are unlikely to notice anyway. Initially, I was going to use Megaton Rainfall for all the post-Ascension footage, but I switched to Google Earth VR for its more varied landscapes. With the right locations and the right lighting, you can really blur the line between earthly and extraterrestrial. Bill Watterson once said that parts of Utah have some brilliant Martian-looking terrain, and I discovered that combining the snowy mountain cascades of the Pacific Northwest and Sweden resembled a brilliant lunar landscape. For some audio and video engineering trivia, the whooshing sound effect used in this scene and a couple others was achieved by generating Brownian noise and adding a tuned wah-wah effect in Audacity. The fade to and from white transitions were done with carefully tuned glow effect in Vegas. Daffy Titanic was supposed to draw the crew portraits in the credits sequence, but the idea to include that sequence came too late in production for him to feasibly draw all 7 of us while still getting the video out in a reasonable time frame. I brought Asimov on board so he could provide rough drafts for him to reference to ease the burden, and because he just really wanted to be part of the action. By coincidence, he also had the idea to do a crew portrait at the end, though I was one step ahead on that front. When Daffy told me it was too much work to do in so little time for one guy, Asimov gave it his best shot. His style is rougher and more Spartan than Daffy's, but he did a fine job regardless, even if it took him 5 tries to pick what he wanted his portrait to look like. But he got the job done, down to drawing me with facial hair. When the video was out of the oven, I watched it with the crew in a private screening so we could all revel in what we achieved together. It was the least I could do to thank them for their help, no matter how major or minor their contributions. It was the first time I'd ever made a video with a proper crew. Sure, I'd had lots of people helping in other projects, namely the extras in that one Fun Facts episode and my Falling Down / Gmod Idiot Box tribute, but it was weird making an episode of Raging Roblox Reviewer where my main contributions were editing and voiceover. I was project lead on this review, yet I had never set foot inside the game I was reviewing, which was a first for the show. At least I was able to get into Robloxian high school long enough to get some of my own footage before having to outsource to friends. but we worked together to make it happen. A few of the crew have moved on since then, but still, I gotta give them my regards for their contributions. Finally, we get to the part of the video where most people had already clicked off. I was worried people would do that because of how I paced the video, but that's their problem. And kinda mine, I guess. They missed out on one hell of a bombshell. For those who saw my Roblox Isn't Worth It video, this whole review is basically a buildup of how I wound up in exile. This last section kinda has that in media res vibe of, and that's how I got here. Now my conscience is clear, and I can finally enjoy my exile in peace. To get the timing right, I actually sat on the floor wearing my Oculus Rift S while listening to the song that plays during this segment, Roman Sky. Once again, it took a few tries to get the feel right. Good thing this is one of those songs that I never tire of hearing. Originally, I was gonna have the final monologue be one continuous shot of me just looking out over this gorgeous mountain range in the Midwest USA, somewhere in Colorado or Montana or something like that. But the pacing was a little too slow compared to what I had to say, and I wanted to make it a little more dynamic, so I added some quantum leaping to a couple other locations, like the top of Devil's Tower and a snowy mountain range in Sweden or Alaska or something like that. You generally don't have to look very hard to find a good view in Google Earth VR. It is hands down my favorite VR experience ever. It's up there with hot dogs, horseshoes, and hand grenades, as well as Myst. Releasing my Roblox archive to the public was a bombshell I kept between me and the crew, all the way until it dropped during the premiere. After that part of the video played and got the chat all hyped up, I edited the video description to include the download link and let him know it was there. Splattered actually fixed and improved a few of my games, but he's not going to do any more because he's about had it with Roblox as well. Either way, I still hope the archive proves enjoyable and useful, and I still hope nobody's using it in bad faith. I'm still damn proud of that final shot. Reason to Die Awakening gets its well-deserved verdict with a stamping sound achieved by me slapping my desk and editing the pitch, and I gaze up into the stars as the credits roll, giving the video, and the series, the ultimate sense of finality. Though it was painful for me to crane my neck up for as long as I did. I originally did that for the rest of the song, and that posture is not comfortable when you've got a big, heavy hunk of plastic and computer components strapped to your head. Go figure it was all for naught since it proved too shaky and I just had the footage freeze altogether at some point so that it wouldn't awkwardly shimmer for the whole credits sequence. The lyrics in this part of the song are inadvertently befitting of my situation. It features the last words of Giordano Bruno, the man burned at the stake because it was unprecedented heresy for him to theorize that stars were other suns and that there were other galaxies out there beyond our own. Obviously, his was a much more progressive and subversive take than anything I've said of Roblox, but our sentiments toward our executioners align nicely. Perchance you who pronounce my sentence are in greater fear than I who receive it. That's the closest translation we have, anyway. For lyrical purposes, Avenged Sevenfold simplified it to, as you will sentence me, your fear is beyond mine. Though Roblox never sued me, so I think Ruben Sim has better claim to that correlation than I do. I miss Roblox, but the Roblox I knew and loved is gone. As I gaze into the stars, I'm reassured that there is a world beyond it, and it's waiting for me. Released from the confines of Roblox, that world is finally mine to explore. So much time has passed between my exile and now. If I'm being perfectly honest, I don't feel any poorer for it. When something can be taken from you that easily, without recourse, there's no point in getting invested. I live a much happier life out here in exile, and I'm grateful that you guys are still here for me. Which is good, because there's one retrospective left for me to do. And I'm cooking up something special for that one. Stay tuned, and I'll see you on the flip side.